Let's start with a very interesting Reddit story. Punk Tyrannosaurus. Fire me because I did my job? Okay, hope you don't need all of these supplies. I love taking photos of people. To the point that I have 2 resumes for applying for jobs, and one of them is specifically for photography work. So I was psyched when I got a job in a photo studio. It was a chain and it wasn't like high quality work, but it was still awesome. I took a lot of photos of very cute babies in particular. Well, the company had a 3-strike policy. Once there were 3 issues with you, you were gone. They made you sign off on every single one of the reports. It didn't matter how much later it was that you got your next strike. They never went away. Okay. Doesn't seem like a great business model, but okay. And being fair, I did get 2 strikes which were very reasonable. One day, I missed work because I forgot to set an alarm. It was a super irregular schedule and it wasn't always easy to keep track of. Mea culpa. The next strike happened because I scheduled a photo shoot for before the beginning of a shift accidentally. The program was supposed to only show you times that an employee would be available for doing photo shoots, and they changed our hours with very little warning, so the photo shoot that I had scheduled the week before that would have been within our hours was no longer. I felt super bad for the mom and daughter who came in early for their photos and helped them sort everything out with a free photo redemption in apology. I still got my second strike for that. Now, the last strike, I actually got 2 on the same day. Around Christmas, our store goes nuts. We have to have twice as many people working in order to keep everything in order. During that, I was training a new employee and helping with her photo shoots and my own and running cash and taking passport photos and teaching her the rules for them and it was a nightmare. What made it worse was that one customer submitted 2 complaints that day about me. See, this customer felt I was pushing her to buy photos. Literally, all this company cares about is pushing the photo packages, and I was instructed relentlessly to do it more, and with more energy, because I didn't make enough people feel they had to have them. South great. I convinced a customer to spend money instead of just giving them free things and not getting $1 from them, like the company was always yelling at me to do. And I got a complaint for that? Great. And then the other complaint was even more ludicrous. The customer felt I was being too bossy with the other photographer. The one that I was training, the one that didn't know how to do the job yet, so I had to tell her how to do things. Apparently I deserved to be fired for telling her how to do things. I was heartbroken. It's been a few years now, so I've gotten over it, but I was so happy working as a photographer. But here's where the malicious compliance finally kicks in. See, by my nature, I end up doing a lot of work that isn't actually my job because I want to help. I enjoy feeling useful. But they're firing me because they don't want me to sell things or train people like they had told me to do. So for the last 2 weeks of my job, I stopped counting all of the money for deposits. That was the manager's job, even though she hadn't done it in half a year since making me do it. This meant she had to come in on days that she didn't work just to do the deposit. I stopped actively recruiting customers, which is what you're supposed to do in your downtime. Cold call previous customers and prowl around the attached mall for people you can convince to get photos. The best tactic was always to find people with new young ones. Tell them how beautiful their baby is. Offer them a free print of one of the photos after a shoot. Almost no one passes that up because then they have a wonderful photo to hold on to. I didn't feel guilty doing it because it genuinely makes people happy. I stopped taking meticulous notes of every interaction that was worth following up on. I used to make a note for the next shift about how X customer had seemed interested, but was unconvinced, and that a simple reminder of the offer would probably be enough to get them to buy. Or I would make a note about someone who forgot their passport photos and whether or not they had paid already. And then on my last day, the truest malicious compliance happened. They wanted me gone. Okay. I took my name tag and packed it away. I went into the photo studio and grabbed the kids' toys I had brought in to help get young ones to cooperate. Babies don't really understand a stranger saying smile for the camera, but if you shake a rattle at them and make silly faces, they're very good at smiling for that. I cleaned up all of the things I had laid out neatly for easy preparation and put them back in storage. I cleaned up the counters to get rid of all of the notes and passport photos that weren't claimed that day, because that was what we were technically supposed to do. And then came the real part that this title refers to. Over my 9 months working there, a number of issues had come up with the things we worked with. For the passport photos, we needed a paper trimmer to slice off the edges quickly and neatly. We had one when I started, and then it broke. I brought in a replacement. It got broken too. Still, we needed one, so I brought in another replacement. We also had gotten our stapler stolen. No worries, I had one at home we could use. And the keys to the storage, the extra receipt paper, the passport paper, where we keep the deposits, where we keep our paper files, they were tiny. And the colour of them was so bland that throughout the course of the day, they would get lost easily 30 times. I had bought a large blue fluffy keychain to attach to it with permission from the boss. Never lost the keys again. Not one of us. We had also had a sign when I started there which we could pop out, which said, "I'm in a photo shoot, please be patient, I'll be with you in a moment." Or something along those lines, because there was often only one employee at a time and they had to do the photo shoots and all of the passport photo drop-ins. Well, my boss accidentally dumped her coffee on that sign after she tripped one day. So I went out of the way to get a new one printed, bought a plastic sleeve for it, and set it up with a cardboard backing so it wouldn't break or get ruined. It was better than the old one. So, of course, when I left, I took my sign, my keychains, my paper trimmer, my stapler, my toys, and, notably, my shutter button. See, the camera had a shutter button attached that would allow you to move about while snapping photos. Again, helped with little ones because they don't understand directions, so you have to be able to physically draw their attention somewhere. This cord had gotten frayed and not replaced. It shocked me nasty enough to leave a burn, so I took it off the camera and brought my own in. I got a call the next day asking me how dare I steal the company's supplies. I calmly replied that I had just taken back the items that belonged to me, and that they could keep the broken paper trimmer that I had brought in. I even left them a pair of scissors I brought for a backup when the first paper cutter broke. I even brought them a box of paper clips for using since they didn't have a stapler anymore. The store closed down not 2 months later. Crazy how when you fire your hardest worker over things that you told them to do, and one missed shift, mea culpa, other employees are less than enthused about the chance of the same thing happening, and no one else worked nearly as hard to keep everything in the black as I did. Not to say there's anything wrong with that. I liked everyone except the manager, since it was only 2 other employees, and they did their work well and treated me nicely. They just had a better sense of doing what they were paid for and nothing else. And for reference, the employee who the customer felt I was treating badly looked at our manager like she was insane and asked when I had done that, because she knew for a fact that the only time I raised my voice at either herself or the only other employee was because it was too loud for them to hear me otherwise. She apologized to me, said that she was worried it was her fault because she had been a little nervous that day because she was dealing with other things and was worried that the customer had gotten the wrong impression because of that. Said employee then went on to have her own gallery show, leaving shortly after I was fired. Edit. People have raised questions about why I worked 2 weeks after being fired. Simply enough, there was no one to cover my shifts. One employee was in China celebrating New Year's with her grandparents, one was working on her own photos which became her gallery show, and the manager would be very over 4th hours if she worked my shifts too. And I needed the money and wanted to say goodbye to some of the kids and parents who I took photos of every month. Relatively common, a lot of them wanted photos of their babies as they grew and changed. Though this has reminded me of one sweet thing they told me, so thanks for questioning all. One of the families said they wouldn't be rebooking next month then because no one else had gotten their kid to take such nice photos. It felt awesome. It's been 6 years, so I had forgotten about that. Edit 2. Just another torturous tidbit about this company. They kept every studio temperature the same as corporate. Corporate was in a very different climate area. It was almost always either meltingly hot all summer or freezing cold in winter. Edit 3. It has been brought to my attention repeatedly that a shutter release cord does not have enough power to do that much damage, which leads me to believe that one of the commenters who suggested it may have been an issue with the flash setup in the studio is probably right. That I was just completing the circuit. All I know was that it hurt like a bitch, and that it stopped happening after the cord was replaced. Now it seems likely that it just stopped happening because I was then no longer in contact with another good conductor like metal. The malicious compliance was brilliantly executed. Taking back personal items while leaving the studio scrambling highlighted employers' over-reliance on an underappreciated employee. It was the perfect blend of fairness and irony, ensuring the employer felt the weight of his poor management. The next story from Not AB Ad Guy 3. Got told to f*** by my assignment group, and that's just what I did. I'm on phone, so please ignore the formatting issues. I do a computer science degree at university. We had a group work project which is set out in 2 stages. Part A involved making an application and writing a report about it, 50-50 split. Part B, we got feedback from Part A and had to improve upon it. In total, it was 100% of a module. It is also important to note that there is a group contribution report, GCR, where each student puts in how much they think each student has done. I was in a randomly selected group with 4 others. We each picked a parts of the work that we wanted to do. I was apparently the group's most confident coder, so assigned myself about half of the code, and finish up my work in about the first 3 weeks and work on other projects I have for other modules. Then soon after I finished my work, the others ask me if I can do their parts of the code too. I initially protest as I have my other coursework due, but eventually I say fine. But so long as it is noted in the GCR, they all agree. I sweat it out over the next 3 weeks or so, alongside my other coursework. I contacted my module organizer explaining that I had done half the work, and they suggested if people weren't pulling their weight to leave the group, taking my code with me, and do the report. That would mean I would need to work flat out to produce the report, and probably would mess it up. I didn't want that. The deadline was in about a week, and I CBA. Then I got asked to do some report too, because they didn't understand how the code worked. By this point, I felt pretty used by them. Didn't really mind so long as I got the marks. All in all, I worked out that I had done the workload of 3 people. There was talk amongst the others of all writing that we each contributed 20% of the workload to make us look better as a team. I flatly refused. They exploded calling me with every name under the sun, swearing at me, telling me to f***. I sent off my GCR with 60 for me and 10 each for the rest, and thought that was that. My module organizer then emailed me asking if I had any proof of this, as they all put me at 0% and themselves at 25%. I'd worked my ass off on this project, putting in 150 plus hours on the code and another 50 plus on the diagrams and report, all while attending lectures 20 hours a week, over 7 weeks, which if you do that maths averages at an extra 4 hours a day. On top of all my other assignments and commitments, etc., there was no way I was letting it slide. I emailed him back, linking him to the GitHub I used to share the code with the team. GitHub is a source control that shows who made changes to the code, and showed him that all the commits, version of the code, were done by me, proving that I did all of it. And thankfully, we did the whole report on Google Drive, so I could also see the history on that document and send him screenshots of all the alterations made by me, proving that I wrote approximately 20% of the report also. He added it all up and made a special exception for my group, saying he would give me most credit for the work. I think I ended up with a 65 and they all get 11 for the whole coursework Part A. They would need 69% to even pass the module. So turned out I f***ed up a bit on the code, only getting about 50% of the marks with like a massive issue in it. Dumb me, for anyone interested, I didn't make a MVC structure correctly. But my report sections were near perfect. Spelling mistakes, a common thing I do, and formatting, etc. There were a few glaring mistakes from the report that they had written, but other than that, not bad. When they found out their marks, they started calling me up and emailing me and messaging me almost for about 3 hours. I was happily out at the time and didn't have my phone with me, so didn't respond. My module organizer sent an email explaining that they had lied and he had proof about it, so corrected the marks according. When I got back to my phone, I screenshot all the messages they had sent and recorded all the voicemails, including the ones they had sent previously, including multiple occasions where everyone in the group told me to and F off I did. I sent all these voicemails and screenshots to my module organizer requesting that I leave my group and understand that it is more work for me, but I'd rather not deal with that. He agreed and also escalated the messages to someone higher up. At this point, I quit the group and decided to work on part B by myself, taking all of my code with me, removing their access to all of it. I, of course, asked my module organizer first, and they said it was fine as it was my work, and if I was no longer in their group, the others couldn't submit it. I fixed the error in the code in about 2 weeks, then did the whole report from scratch almost, and added a load about the fix, taking me about 7 weeks. I then get messages from the group to please come back. We really need you kind of stuff on the end few days of the assignment. They even offered to pay me. I screenshot it and send it to the module organizer just to let him know what is happening, and then just ignore them. I ended up submitting 2 weeks early for the deadline and got 100% on the whole Section 2, which is basically unheard at university, especially by yourself for group work. Later that day, I get an email from a plagiarism and collusion officer, not someone you ever want to get an email from. Basically says I'm summoned to a hearing as an external body looked at both my group, me, myself and I, and my old group's coursework and thought it was very similar. I get the whole project that my group handed in and my own back as evidence so I can look and prepare my answer to their questions. I email my module organizer, ask if he supports me in this because basically they can punish all of you or one group, never nobody. He says, yes, he supports me in this. Perfect. I prepare for this meeting by going through the hundreds of commits I have made while they had access to find the one that is most similar to it. I find a perfect match, 0 differences, not even a single character, through the thousands of lines of code. So I turn up to this meeting, there is the VP of computing there, guy who could basically do whatever the hell he wants to us. My old group, when asked to present their answer as to why this has happened, go on about how they did all of it by themselves, blah blah. You get the point. This goes on for about 10 minutes. Then I am asked to present my argument. I ask if I can share my screen. VP. Yeah, okay. Puzzled. So I share it. Show all the screenshots I took as some of the people in the meeting weren't aware that we knew each other, including them basically begging for me to come back offering money to. And as if this wasn't enough to convince them, I then showed me downloading a fresh version of what they submitted and a fresh version of one of my commits on the GitHub and running it through a trusted comparison software. I narrated this to explain what I was doing just to be clear. Took a while, but came up as I knew it would 0 differences. Everyone was stunned. One of the group members uttered, "but ... I just laughed, and was quickly asked to hang up as I was no longer involved. Turned out they had cloned one of my commits and still had a copy on their laptop. When I blocked their access, not been able to fix it at all, so just submitted it and hoped for the best. One of my friends, who is friends with one from my old group, asked what grade they got, and they said that they failed the whole module as they got a 0 for the second section, giving them just 5.5% overall for the module. You need 40 to pass, and would have to retake it over the summer, costing them and everyone in my old group their placement year jobs, after all, who wants someone who failed a module so badly and who was intellectually dishonest working for them. This meant that they all lost out on being paid approximately $20,000 each for the year's work, which goes a long way for a uni student, while I happily get mine. TL, doctor, old group tried to screw me over and told me to off, and I did, taking all of my work with me, causing them to fail the class. Edit. Thanks for the awards. Sorry it's so long. Edit 2. To everyone asking, it was on Pro Revenge it got removed quickly from there, so I thought I'd put it here instead. Edit 3. I can't spell there. Edit 4. Tried to shorten it a bit. Edit 5. Thank you to everyone for all your comments. I am sorry that I cannot respond to them all. I will try my best. Really didn't expect this to blow up. It was really a striking revenge that knocked down the incompetent and credit thief students who wanted to get marks without contributing anything to the project. OP did a wonderful job by exposing their theft, ensuring they failed the module, and he got 100%. It is one of the best examples for standing for oneself.